Good morning, fourth graders. Welcome back to week 7 of school. Last week was a really short week, and you just had a long MEA weekend, but we're going to start getting back into math mode and start working with arrays and start getting into multiplication. We did some arrays review earlier in the year, kind of at the beginning of the year. So getting back into arrays should be a little bit more of an easy going thing. Today's learning target is that I can model multiplication using equal groups of items organized in arrays. We're going to be learning some new vocab this week with our arrays, rows and columns. We briefly went over that earlier in the year, but we're going to be really focusing on rows and columns because that's the vocabulary that we're going to be referring to over this unit and when we work with arrays. So when we talk about rows and columns, we mean how things go horizontally and vertically. So rows always go from left to right. Think of movie theater seats, how they're in rows, or concert seats, how those are in rows. You would watch a movie in a row, you would watch a concert in a row. So rows go horizontally. Columns go up and down. Think of the columns on a building, like those giant white columns that you might see outside of some building. Those are called columns. Those go up and down, and that's how we can distinguish in arrays. So we will be talking about rows and columns quite frequently. So let's draw some arrays together. And for this, I'm going to be using my handy dandy highlighting tool and some different colors to show the arrays. So let's draw 3 rows of 5. So we need 3 rows. I'll start about drawing my 3 rows. And when it says 3 rows of 5, that means that there are 5 dots in each row. So here's my first row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here I have my 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and I should have 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 3 rows of 5. In multiplication, whenever you see this of, that means multiplication. So if you ever see of, that means multiply. So how many dots are in this array? So if this says 3 rows of 5, that's kind of saying 3 times 5 because of means times in math. So 3 rows of 5, we know, can equal 15. If I don't know that off the top of my head, I can go ahead and count the dots in the array, but let's be working on our math facts. 3 times 5 equals 15. Let's look at this second one. 7 columns of 2. 7 columns of 2, which means we're going to have 7 columns or 7 dots in each row. So we'll start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we have of 2, which means we have 2 rows. So we just need to do one more row with 7 columns. And there's our array. This array is saying 7 times 2, because remember, of means times. So 7 times 2, how many are in this array? 14. Same thing that you would do with 4 rows of 6. You would do 4 rows going left to right. Of means multiply. The 6 refers to the column. So you would have 4 rows and 6 columns in that array. So let's look at some different arrays. You can see arrays in literally any place in your life, not just in math class. Take a look at this package of water bottles. That's an array. or these squares in a waffle. That's also an array. So there's arrays all around you that you can solve. So let's look at these different arrays and then write an equation that matches it. So remember, we're still thinking rows and columns. Let's look at the water bottle one. How many rows do we have? Remember, rows go left to right, so we can highlight our left to right. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 rows. So we can start by writing our multiplication equation, 4 times something, because remember, arrays are multiplication, so we want multiplication. Now let's see how many columns. Remember, columns go up and down. Let's see. Oh, let me get a different color. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 columns. So our equation will look like 4 times 6 equals 24. If we know our math facts, 4 times 6 equals 24. If you don't know your math facts, go ahead and count. But remember, let's be practicing our math facts so that arrays can be easier for us. We have our rows times columns equals 24. There's 24 water bottles in this array. Let's take a look at our handy dandy waffle over here. How many rows do we see? Rows go left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 rows. How many columns do we have? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 columns, so 4 times 4. How many squares in this waffle? 16. So remember, rows go this way, columns go this way, and that's how we are going to be referring to arrays. And then finally, let's look at this. Who knows what this is? It's a checkerboard. Or you can maybe think of a chessboard from Fish in a Tree. Chess. So we want to work together to figure out how many checkers it would take to cover every single space. So if every one of these spaces was covered with a piece, how many pieces would we need? So remember, we have to look at how many rows we have. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we have 8 rows. So our multiplication sentence is going to start 8 times something, because remember, multiplication is with arrays. Let's see how many columns we have. How many columns? Remember, columns go up and down. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we have 8 columns. So our multiplication sentence is going to look like 8 times 8 equals, okay, what's 8 times 8? 64. And if you don't know that, you can break it apart or count how many you see, but we would need 64 checkers pieces to cover every single space. So this is a little introduction to arrays, and we'll get into that more into it as the week goes on. But we're really starting to work on our multiplication skills and how to multiply maybe bigger numbers. So make sure you're practicing your math facts and kind of hammering those in so that our work with multiplication and arrays will come a little bit easier to you. So yeah, this is our introduction to arrays, and there will be an activity for you with arrays after this video.